Good Wednesday evening. First tonight on KVUE News at 5. The Austin Police Department has a new chief.
Interim Police Chief Joe Chacon named the sole finalist for the position.
Senior reporter Tony Blahetsky joins us live with more on this decision. Hello, Tony.
Hey, Brian and Ashley, and this is an internal hire, the second internal hire that City Manager Spencer Cronk has made since he has been the top executive for the city. And with us now is Interim Police Chief, but soon to be the Police Chief, Joe Chacon. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Obviously, a lot of questions as you take this role in what is really a very dynamic time in our community. Obviously, over the past year, there has been a growing call for police reforms. It's something that we've been talking about and covering as well. So I want to ask you, I heard you mention today there are certain jobs that maybe you're looking at having civilians take over as opposed to sworn police officers. But as you look to the future, the next 6 months, the next year, what are some of the reforms that you would like to put in place?
You know, thank you, Tony, for the question and for certainly for having me on. I'm very excited for this opportunity. The reforms have really been ongoing since I took over as the interim police chief, and just trying to find the things that are in the reimagined public safety area and how we can implement those. There's going to be others that are going to take time, longer periods of time, to really evaluate, to determine the feasibility and how they might be implemented. And those are just going to take longer. But we, for some time, have been looking at those types of calls that police officers right now respond to, that civilians might be able to respond to instead, and are in the process of evaluating and implementing those.
And some of that has been part of the cause of reformers in our community as well. I want to ask you, certainly another big topic that we've been confronting as a community is a spike, particularly in the past year and a half, in gun violence and also homicides. From a crime prevention and response standpoint, what are some of your plans to address this spike that we're having?
You know, it is certainly, I think, what is of utmost concern right now to our community is making sure that we are, as a police department, are keeping people safe. And where we have seen it, and I've been talking about it pretty consistently, is in that rise in gun violence and how we can address that. So I think it's really a two-pronged approach. The first being our violence intervention program, which is about 5 months in and will continue. And the other part is to look more proactively, you know, further upstream in some of these issues to see if we can address it, say through efforts of our Office of Violence Prevention with the city, you know, from more of a civil type of a perspective.
I want to ask you too, the police union, the Austin Police Association today issued a statement, a public statement, basically saying that you were not their pick for the next police chief. Certainly as someone who has worked with members of the police union and risen through the ranks of this department, I can imagine that did not feel very good. But I do want to ask you, you know, looking forward, how will you work with not only the union, but also the rank and file who may not have chosen you had the decision been up to them? Certainly.
You know, I think that the union certainly plays a role, and they represent, you know, the men and women of the department and the way that they think is best. You know, certainly for me, I care about that. I don't like the idea that I'm not their first choice, but I respect it. And, you know, for those, you know, particularly the men and women of the Austin Police Department who come to work every day, put their lives on the line and just do such a professional job, you know, my plan really is now that removing that interim title off of the police chief, I think that is going to lend greater stability. It's going to lead to better morale. And I'll just say that I'm fully committed to becoming their pick down the road for what is best for this office.
One last quick question. I do want to ask you, obviously voters in November are going to be voting on a proposal, on a ballot proposition that would mandate a minimum amount of staffing. Your thoughts on Proposition A?
Yeah, I'm not going to, comment on a ballot item, but what I have said pretty consistently about staffing overall is that we do need to have a data-driven, evidence-based approach to it, and that's what the Austin Police Department's working on.
Chief Chacon, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time today and for your insights. City Council members do have to confirm Chief Chacon as the next police chief. That is scheduled to happen on September 30th. Brian and Ashley.